I hope you guys are happy. After that Rescue Ace review, I got so burned up that I've been here recovering for months. You're just lucky I'm getting released today. I'm literally only staying right now to get one last pudding cup in. Much better. Now, welcome back to Deck Reviews, the place you go to find your next deck or to see if that one guy at Locals is playing a viable strategy. In today's episode, I make myself cry. Now, before I launch into the video today, I will preface it for the viewers that have been around this channel for a while. Although I do love this deck to death, I will be keeping my scores and representation of this deck as objective as possible. Now, let's not waste any time and get straight to the deck breakdown. Scraps are mostly known as being the older cousins to the Unchained archetype. Their game plan revolves around destroying their own monsters via scrap effects to assemble the pieces into their big boss monsters. Especially thanks to the aforementioned behemoths, scraps are inherently designed as a going second strategy that is peak at breaking boards and maintaining advantage through various types of floating effects. Most of these center around either searching, summoning from deck, recurring from the graveyard, and destroying other cards on the field. Sometimes all at once. With that information now in the scrap heap, let's dig into the deck's pros and cons. This time around, I would like to begin with the shortcomings of this particular strategy. Unfortunately, scraps do have several choke points at which to be stopped, and without the perfect hand, will be stopped by a single disruption. On top of this, well, scraps don't always tend to play well with others. While there are a few spare archetypes that can lend a few cards to support this strategy, it unfortunately does not synergize with many. Even those who seek to destroy their own cards, since scrap cards need to be destroyed by scrap effects to activate, it's really weird. Pairing even further with those ideas, scraps don't really fare well as a going first deck. While they are able to access several synchro options, they simply are just not built to be able to set up a wall for their opponent to deal with. Now stop. I know that I've more than likely sold you on not playing this deck, but just listen some more and keep your mind open, because now we get to talk about the good parts of this deck. While it's true the deck doesn't excel at going first, it is worthy as a going second strategy capable of breaking numerous boards. While they may destroy their own cards quite often, they also do so to the opponent, as well as returning cards to the hand and various other forms of removal that can be accessed through disruption. The reason for this is significantly due to the flexibility, consistency, and power of this archetype, all of which we will dive more into later on. Scraps also possess no Xenolocks anywhere within their card text, opening up a myriad of options to work with. I know I said before that they don't typically play well with others, and while that is mostly true, the ones they do mix with, they do exceedingly well. For example, my Chop Shop decks from formats past were based on the scrap engine to facilitate outstanding end fields following the destruction of the opponents. Not to mention the crackback of the majority of these builds is outstanding. Now that I've spent enough time on that subject, let's begin with the actual review, shall we? As per usual, we will be taking a look at power first. With a rating of 9 out of 10, this deck is astonishing for scrapping the competition. Wyvern inherently destroys any card on the field without targeting, all while enabling the deck's biggest combos, the likes of which will get into even further board breaking, with monsters like Scrap Twin Dragon being able to bounce 2 of the opponent's cards, while destroying 1 of your own to possibly extend further. And outside of the pure variant using synchro monsters to break boards, the many variants of this deck, especially the machine versions, are capable of climbing through link bodies to break boards with monsters like Lib the World Key Blademaster, the Codebreaker package, and Access Code Talker, which will be set up with ample attributes to eliminate even more threats. Now, getting this deck's plays off the ground resemble a funnel. Plays are pretty narrow at the start and include a couple of huge bottlenecks. But after that point, the play lines become near infinite and expand into a large complex web of ideas to draw from, especially when considering the recycler-based combos. With everything being generic and not at all restrictive, the tools to keep playing are practically boundless. Considering these points, an 8 out of 10 score seems pretty fitting for this deck's flexibility. Once you get past the early stages of worrying about disruptions on your largest bottlenecks, it's all smooth sailing to the finish line. And speaking of the finish line, we just hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I just want to give a quick thank you to everyone involved in that. If you've hit that subscribe button, you have our utmost thanks. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit it now as we're on the road to 2,000. Y'all stay awesome, and let's get back to the video. And would you look at that, this deck does actually achieve a max score of 10 out of 10 for compatibility. I know, I stated earlier that this deck doesn't synergize with much, but that's not to say it can't be compatible to some extent. Pure Scraps have a myriad of different typings that can mix with certain strategies, such as Golem's Rock typing for Adamancipator, Raptor's Dino typing for Dinosaurs, or hell, even Wyvern's Dragon typing for Dragon Link if you so choose. Not to mention, they're all Earth attributes, so the Vernisylphs are a perfect pairing for a Synchro Spam combo deck. Profile on the card above. On top of this, any machine-based strategy with any semblance of graveyard synergy can be put into a recycler-based scrap deck with incredible consistency. For example, Machina, Orchist, Rescue Ace, Therion, Crystron, and Springens are a few among the many that can benefit from looping Recycler while building up Link bodies on the field. Heck, even certain Pendulum strategies, yes, you heard me right, I said Pendulum, can mix with this deck. Metal Foes, Dino Mist, and some Pen Magicians can play off of Scrap's self-destruction effects, oddly enough. That all being said, with so many options to choose from, there does come a downside of sometimes having too many. Being able to learn the different combos and ways to play the deck can end up being a tad cumbersome. While I've spent nearly 2 years learning the strategy and its variations myself, an average player definitely could pick it up with some standard practice, putting the complexity for Scraps at a solid 7 out of 10. Resisting the continuation of this video is futile, so let's carry on into our next topic, resistance. With a measly total of 5 out of 10, there are unfortunately several easy ways to disrupt this strategy enough to stop it from playing. As was stated earlier in the video, there are several early bottlenecks within the deck that can prevent its ultimate success. Now, there are options to play through these disruptions, but consistently seeing them is not always feasible, which is why this section is so low. Combos galore is the name of our game, and that usually means a whole lineage of access to negates and floodgates. Even in pure Scraps, there are a plethora of opportunities to create problems for your opponent to deal with, as well as easy follow-up if they do have a way to do so. Thankfully, this gives Scraps another higher score of 8 out of 10 for disruption. Just the sheer amount of creativity you can achieve in this area makes it considerably more difficult for opponents to know what to do. Now for our final point of contention before seeing the final results. We have budget. And much like most rogue strategies, this deck is exceedingly cost effective. Mostly. You will be likely to need more expensive staples, especially in the extra deck, to really compete, but even for just a decent time at your locals to start with, $100 is plenty to put together a solid Scrap build. My most recent rendition of Scrap Vernisylph falls into this price range fairly reasonably, and typically helps with a lot of the issues the deck faces. Should you go for a higher end version like Sprite or Therion Machine Piles, you'll end up needing to spend a little bit more to make it playable, and for those reasons, the deck does fall short at a 9 out of 10 for this category. Now let's recap. Here's the individual scores for each category, and there's a couple in there that worry me a bit, but let's get the average before we go assuming too much. And would you look at that, a solid 8 out of 10. Amongst the strategies I've rated thus far, this falls roughly somewhere in the middle. Not on the far edge of the realm to be forgotten in the minds of the players, but certainly not ready for the front lines of their battlefields. If you would like a strategy that will teach you multitudes of tactical play, consider picking up this engine and throwing different options alongside it until that driver's seat feels like your most used couch. And that's all I have for you today, lads. If you enjoyed the video or still haven't quite found the right deck yet, check out these other deck reviews. Or if you like the idea of Scraps and want some starting points, feel free to dig through our various profiles, combo tutorials, and more for this deck. It's seriously all I do on this channel for the most part. Thank you for watching today, and as always, I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. remember, good fun. Have luck.